time we left up with these dudes. Childhood of Charles Darwin. Today we'll be talking about his voyage of the HMS Beagle. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And let's get started with today's Dark Shun. So guys, what's been going on? And today we will be talking about the HMS Beagle. And hope you enjoyed this episode, and let's get started. In the last episode we left off from the note of the professor. He was like, "Hey, want to go on the trip of the world?" And his answer was yes. Now the captain was called Fitzroy. Actually, let's open a note. The captain was called Fitzroy. And he needed a companion. He was like, "Yeah, want to go aboard a ship, you biologist?" And biologist. And no. They did not want to leave their families. But that was okay for Fitzroy. He just needed someone to be a very keen observer, can take detailed notes, and become a very good dinner companion. And that will last for 5 long years, which is a lot. And then the professor knew this guy. It was like, and the professor was here and like, "Hey, want Charles Darwin? Charles Darwin?" And he was like, Yeah. And it was settled. Charles Darwin would be going on over a trip over the whole world, which had been a dream of his, kind of. And that will inspire his life. His father was like, "No!" And literally hammered it shut into the nail crate. Nail. No. But then his uncle was the guy who was promised to get this no off into the yes. And literally, that's how Charles Darwin became onto the HMS Beagle. That's how he came onto the HMS Beagle. Now, onto the HMS Beagle. Gotcha. It sent around for thousands, actually not thousands, just wanted to exaggerate, for 5 years. And the HMS Beagle went along all the way. Now, let's build a map of the world. Alright, so this is my best map of the world, and now let's add in the lands. I'm gonna do some squiggles here. North America, color in. Then South America, color in. Europe, there's a little England. There's some of the mainlands right here. And then here's the Asian part. Here's the African part. There's the Antarctica, Australia. There's Korea and the Japans. And literally, we are almost done. Yeah. So let's zoom in. Now, let's start from right here. They started in England, and then they trailed their steps all the way to South America. They landed right here, and then they had a lot of things to worry about. And then they went to the Galapagos Islands. Now let's go to now we'll explain what happened to the Galapagos Islands later. In Galapagos Islands, they came back, went across the world, went to Australia, left, had to stop in Africa, left, circumnavigate the Cape of Good Hope, and then came back to England. And this is exactly what happened here. And now let's focus on what happened to the islands of the Galapagos Islands. Let's zoom in on this spot. Zooming in! Alright, so the HMS Beagle went on to a trip around the world. And this is what he found. The Galapagos Islands had a lot of these finches right here. These finches. But there was another continent that had some of these same looking same looking kind of these guys, and that was Africa. Africa. Africa had some kind of bird that looked like these finches. Now, first of all, Charles Darwin thought that the bird from Africa, were literally the same as these birds. But however, he was wrong. They found out that these were different species of animals. And literally, yes, it is literally different species of animals, guys. And that is how everything happened here. And look at what their differences are. Their beak shapes. This one has a very thick beak. Well, this one has a narrow beak. This one has a very long beak, but not that thick. This one is a very thin beak. Now, these are the differences for all of these things. And they are from all of the different islands. Now, let's go back to the note. Alright, so we're here in the notes. The Galapagos Islands had all of these different types of islands. There were finches, and each one with their natural beaks. Yeah, literally. And this is what Charles Darwin Charles Darwin thought about this. He decided to think of something he called evolution. An environment has a lot of animals. Some of them have sex, but their offspring has genetically modified. And this one can survive the environment of cold, very frosty snow. Very frosty snow. And that was bad luck to other people. And will not freeze to death, but it will still be captured in the ice until it really does freeze to death. And this here is literally what happens. This here actually does change the stroke eraser. This is literally what will happen here. Now, there's only this genetically modified being will be the only person who will survive the environment. And then he will have sex with other genetically modified people, and then he will make more offspring. And this is called natural selection. Natural selection. Why selection? Well, because the environment seems to select which animal gets to survive. And this takes over, 60 or more years. That is a lot. That is a lot if you ask me. 60 or more years? Whoa. Sometimes even a century. That is a lot. Back to the finches. Yeah, I already explained how these finches work. And now Darwin even published a little book on these animals, which he called The Origins of Species by Means of Natural Selection. This was an international bestseller, but however, that won't happen until after his voyage. He wrote it, and it took him 20 years to write it. 20 years. Literally. Whoa. And now his means of natural selection. By means of natural selection, it was literally how everything happened. It talks about the origin of animals, how they evolved. And then he found the evolution of these animals, of these man. First, we were a little gorilla. Then we went up to this little caveoric, and then we went to Homo sapiens, and then to today. That's where he wrote The Descent of Man. Or literally he has a cover of the revolutionary thing of the Vitruvian Man. And that's when his voyage came to an end. This book right here was published right after The Origin of Species. Now, that's where we get to that's where we end his life. The honored biologist. He wrote all these books all by himself. He did not discover the origin of species by himself, so he had another scientist with him, but that will be for another video. And then one day, on a cool day, at the age of over 70, he died. He's weird for the X's. He died. Yes. He was buried in Westminster Abbey, the greatest honor of any scientist or man could ever get. So yeah, that's how we ended this episode. Hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I have a question for you. I have a really good question. What do you think? Actually, let's use another color since this is so uncool. What do you think? What will happen? What will happen if Darwin never existed? Yes! What if Darwin never existed? Please write your answers in the comments below. In the comments below. And please subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and hit the bell button. And I'll see you in the next episode. Shinhan out. Peace! See you next time, guys!